In this video, I want to talk about how to build an experimentation culture. We all understand what this might mean, being able to run experiments, to test ideas, to move quickly, but how do you actually do it in practice? What are the actual factors and things you have to keep in mind? So let's jump right in. Hi there, my name is Ruben, and I'm a data and decision strategist, and I help companies of all sizes, specifically Fortune 1000 companies and large enterprises, improve the decisions they're making on a regular basis. One of the things, of course, we naturally come up is experimentation. You might not always have the answer, but can you test it? Can you run ideas? Can you run experiments of all kinds? Digital experiments are, of course, relatively straightforward. You're A/B testing a landing page, a website, an ad. But what about offline things? It's the same idea. Why can you do that? So first, let me start by getting on the same page of what I think an experimentation culture is. So this is a culture that is not afraid to make mistakes. In fact, they know it. They know that maybe of every 10 ideas they test, only one might be a winner. And of course, not every winner is going to be a big winner. So you have to get small wins built upon. Cultures that think about the 1% improvement. It's an idea from Alan Weiss, and he shows that if you improve by 1% every day, then in 70 days you'll be twice as good. Having small wins add up over time can be quite big. And this is a culture, experimentation culture, really allows for all this to happen and perhaps even rewards it. So when people make mistakes, it's not so much an issue as, you had the right approach, you took the right bet, the right assumptions. That's what we're looking for, not so much the results, at least initially. The fundamental thing that underlies a culture is really a framework of how to think through ideas and test them. And I developed a framework I call I.D.E.A. It's an acronym, and it stands for ideation, design, execution, and analysis. So really anything that you test, whether it's digital or not digital, whether it's a process or maybe something very specific, like a website, or a process would be a sales process, for example, right? Or imagine you're a bank, you have a process for how you greet customers and take them from the first step to the end of the transaction in front of you. So all these ideas can be put into a framework, the I.D.E.A. framework. So you start with the ideation, what are the different ideas that you want to test, how you prioritize them, how do you gauge them. Then you have the design, how you're going to test this idea itself. That is, what's the design of the test. This is where you start thinking about sample sizes and how to measure it. Then of course you execute it. So you have to run it for some amount of time. It might be a few days, a few weeks. And then lastly, you analyze it. So you have to go back, look at the results, look at the hypothesis or the assumptions, and then measure how the real world kind of goes against that. So this framework can be built into a spreadsheet or a document, project management. It doesn't really matter. The point is to have it and have people contribute to it when it comes to ideas, have people understand what they're testing, have people know how to measure things, how to look at the results, and then understand that this is a feedback loop. So you go from step 1 to step 4, and then you repeat and you repeat and you repeat. And as you do this more often, more quickly, more consistently, then you start to get really interesting results, really interesting ways of approaching it. The final thing I want to make a note about how to build experimentation culture. You take this idea, framework, then naturally we have data and technology. It has to come up. What data do we need? What technology do we need? And I think it plays a few roles. First, you need to be able to report on things. So be able to report on experiments and specifically be able to tie it to outcomes. So it's not so much that someone view a page, someone view an ad, but how does that tie into the actual revenue or whatever the key outcome that you're looking for? Perhaps it's just user growth or retention, customer satisfaction, but how do you tie into that? What's the real direct connection to it? The second thing is, of course, some way to manage experiments. So I talked before about spreadsheets or project management or something similar, but there has to be a way or a place to store experiments, store the results, and then be able to reference them in the past. And then lastly, of course, is testing capabilities. Do you have the enough options or software to be able to run this test? Of course, on the digital side, we might be talking about A/B testing on the web, on mobile. And if you're in person, do you have the capabilities to be able to run offline tests? So we go back to that example of the banking. Is that something you can run? Is that something you can track, train people on it relatively quickly and then run it? That's what when we start thinking about testing capabilities. That's really the starting point of a culture, right? It starts with what sort of the framework that we need to be able to implement this, what technology, what data, and of course, what role do people play? Do they need to be trained, coached, and then we go from there. And that is all I have for today. As always, if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. subscribe. This is actually a workshop that I did for the Canadian Market Association. So they have a recording of it, which you can find online. You can search my name, Ruben Ugarte, and experimentation culture, and you can find it. And I believe it's 3 hours long or something. So it goes much deeper into the same concepts. There's also 3 links in the description box that I think you'll find helpful. One is my weekly newsletter, The Growth Needle. It has similar ideas to this, but in a written format. Number 2 is my book, I.D.E.A Mirage. It's out now, available everywhere. You can buy books, Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and so on. And there is actually a chapter on experimentation in the book where I cover similar ideas when I wrote this about a year ago. And then third is Twitter, where I'm posting bite-sized insights on a regular basis. So those 3 links give you a few more options to engage with content and keep learning. And they're in the description box. Finally, in the comment section below, post your thoughts, questions, impressions, takes. I'm sure other people would love to read them. And there'll be some related videos around me that can give you other ideas that you can keep diving into. Until next time, talk soon.